Very good. Well, tell you what, Coach Kirk, we're a couple minutes behind schedule. You want to just fire this up and
Sure.
get this party started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, welcome everybody. So good to see you. You know, the nice thing about this, we're definitely going to see comments now through chat. Everyone should be enabled. I see some folks joining, but let's go ahead and get things fired off for the day. And first of all, I'd like to say, hey, welcome everyone. We're super excited to have you here for this interactive session on transforming complex solutions into compelling, relatable stories. Hey, if you've ever struggled to make a technical concept stick, or you felt like your demos weren't landing the way you had hoped, well, this session's for you. I'm Paul Pierce, president of America's a Great Demo, and we're here to help pre-sales and sales teams deliver surprisingly compelling demonstrations that accelerate buying decisions. So if you ever sat through a long, forgettable demo, you know how critical it is to make your messages resonate. And that's exactly what we're going to do in today's session about the power of metaphors and analogies to simplify complexity or create those aha moments to help you win more deals. And here to help us guide us through this, I've got an incredible expert in the art of storytelling. We call him Coach Kirk Taylor. And I just got to tell you, man, first of all, Kirk, thanks for being here. You and
Happy
I
to
have been
be here.
hanging out for a while. And I remember the first time we talked, you started using metaphors and analogies. I was
Yeah.
like, wait a second, man, that's kind of an advanced skill. That's the kind of stuff that people have been doing this for a while. Tell me more. And so I know, Coach, that you you've got some expertise here, and that's one of the reasons I asked you to be here, just to share with the rest of us some of the things that you know and you've used. But I'm not done talking about you yet, so hang on just a moment.
Okay.
So, folks, Kirk is an award-winning storytelling teller. He's a solution consulting coach. He's a seasoned video content creator with over 20 years of human capital management industry expertise. He's led pre-sales teams at SAP, UKG, Oracle, ADP, and today he's leading a high-performance solution consulting team at Rippling. If you don't know anything about Rippling, it's actually one of the fastest growing companies in the industry. They're revolutionizing workforce management by unifying HR and IT and finance into like this really cool, seamless, automated system. Hey, but let me get back to Kirk because Kirk's actually the founder of Tailor Made Productions. Kirk has produced award-winning documentaries and corporate videos, bringing a unique blend of creativity and technical expertise to every story that he tells. So here's it. Simply put, Kirk knows how to make complex ideas stick. And today he's here to help you do the same. So enough of me talking, Kirk or Coach Kirk. I love that you're here. Welcome to our first January 2025 webinar. And it's just great to see you.
Yeah. Yeah, great to see you too, Paul. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. I know we had some technical difficulties, but I'm glad to be here. Super excited, ready to share with you all. So let's hope that the technical difficulties don't stay with us because I'm going to now share my screen. Just validate with a thumbs up for me, Paul, that you can see my story slide.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks good here.
Awesome, fantastic. So guys, I have a story to tell, and I think it's so relatable. I hope it relates to you. You can experience what I've experienced. But as we go to start to talk about analogies, I was remembering some travel that I was doing a lot. I was traveling all over the country, lots of airports, you can imagine. I have a trusty backpack of mine that I use all the time. And because of, I guess, that extra wear and tear, it decided to tear on me on one of my last trips to Montreal. And it looked like this. So you can imagine my fright when I thought, oh my gosh, like all my stuff, I'm not going to be able to carry everything. What should I do? Should I just go grab a new backpack? And the thought occurred to me, being a tailor, I thought, wait a minute, it's not that bad. It actually wasn't as big as this. It was a much smaller tear. But the point is, I thought to myself, I could fix this. And so I went to the hotel lobby, knowing that I could get a sewing kit there. And if you didn't realize, yes, my last name is Taylor, but my dad was a tailor. And so I actually know how to sew. And I've seen sewing kits. And if any of you have ever used a sewing kit in your life or just did any sewing, you probably know that it looks like, a set of needles, you got some thread. And what's the difficult thing about sewing, right? I know, especially as I'm getting older, it's the threading of it. It's actual putting the thread through the needle. And so that's why I was so surprised when I got a sewing kit like this. And you'll notice the difference between the one on the left and the one on the right. The one on the right actually has pre-threaded needles. And what did that do? It just meant like I could pick the appropriate thread, get started on my job right away. And that's literally what happened. And so I bring that up as an analogy, right? We're going to talk about analogies today, but the difference can be you using analogies to talk about concepts, right? You're all using software and you know your software, but your customer doesn't. So if you can do one thing differently, if the one thing you take away is, using analogies, my goal here is to, empower you to help you use analogies to tell better stories.
Love it. I'm thinking about that one on the right and how many bloody fingers that would have saved me as I'm licking the string or this thread trying to get it through the needle. That's like the worst part of the entire experience. It's not the sewing, it's just getting that
Correct.
freaking piece of string through the needle. I love it.
So true. So true, Paul. And so if thanks for pointing out that too, because the fact is things can be better by design. And that's the concept that we're talking about here. Better by design. Well, you're going to be better by design. The truth is, in any presentation, you're the one that's the difference maker. The software might be cool and great, but you're the one that makes the difference. You're the one that makes it stand out in front of your customer. So thank you so much, Paul, for that introduction. That so well received. I appreciate that. Yes, I'm a coach for solution consulting because I just love that trade so much. I've been doing it a long time, and I'm so happy to be a manager now here at Rippling. I work with a great set of people, great leaders, great fast-paced organization. But I'm also a filmmaker, and I bring that up because I think my ability to weave together stories is just kind of makes me uniquely qualified to talk to you today about how you can use your presentations with stories and make things that much better. So my goal really here is to level you up when it comes to maybe just that one tweak that you're going to change in your presentations. So I'm so excited today to talk to you about the concept. And you can imagine I'm going to keep going with this sewing theme, right? I already started with needle and thread. Well, my analogies are going to keep sticking with this. So let's
I
start
think
off
you're
with
going to have this in stitches the whole time.
I can't wait for the puns. Keep them coming and the dad jokes. In fact, we also want to, who doesn't start off a presentation without saying, let's keep it interactive? Well, we are going to use the chat. I think, Paul, you're going to monitor the chat for me. But if you want to go ahead, let's get started and go. Well, first of all, why use analogies? So you guys are all here for a reason. Why do you think it's important to use analogies? So if you please just comment in the chat why you think that's important, that analogies or metaphors or even telling stories. Why do you think that's important? So, Paul, if you want to maybe read that for me, since I can't see the chat, if there's anybody making responses.
Oh man, we got some good ones. I would have to say that so far it's so good. We've got things like this is so relevant from art. Kevin said it's making things memorable and relatable. That's so right. Man, art's on fire, making it stick like a band-aid.
I
And
love it.
Peter said people need anchors that they know to understand something new. Yeah, absolutely. Those anchors. This is good. I love the feedback. Keep the comments coming. I think we're gonna have to have a contest to who's got the best pun by the
Yeah.
end of this session. Oh, I love it. All right, keep going, man. I know
Keep
we're
it
short.
going. All right. So let's think about this. There's a pattern, really. When I think back, I told you my dad was a tailor. Well, I remember being in his tailor shop, seeing all these patterns on the wall, like patterns for pants and jackets and so on. I'm thinking, doesn't he know how to do those? Yeah, he does, but he always starts with a pattern, and that pattern is what he lays in the cloth and he cuts it around. And so the same is true for analogies. I think that I know how to make them, but I'm like, how do I help others do this? So I'm going to show you a pattern that I think works. Hopefully, it'll be repeatable for you. And that's something that we'll share with you so you can have as a takeaway. But of course, as you do something, it's not just a webinar. We kind of want you to try it on. And we're going to figure out the best way to do this. I think we're going to use some chat here to kind of get people to try it on, meaning like, let's use that pattern and let's figure out if we got the concepts down. So let's use that time to do that as well. And we'll keep an eye on our time. I know that we burnt a little bit of time at the front here. So, and then we're going to
Always,
sew it all up together with an analogy at the end. We're going to sew up our analogy. Go ahead, Paul. You're going to add something?
I was going to say I think we're all in pins and needles.
Oh man, of course.
I'm
I I
sorry.
th I
I'll
think I
stop.
think I think you got us in stitches already, but let's make sure that we keep it going.
There's some awesome ones coming in on chat as well. I'm not going to read them all, but I'm seeing
Give me
that there's
one.
a couple people very skilled here. I love it. Keep going though.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I thought you were going to share one, but okay. So let's start off with a why use analogy. So I like to think of real world. So I'm currently in a great position at Rippling. If again, Paul did a great job talking about the difference in Rippling. One of the things that I pointed out or learned right away is there's something we call a super group. And that feature is something we want to lean into because that's what makes rippling different in the marketplace. And what a supergroup essentially is permissions. So great. What's permissions? It's like access to the software. So as technical people, we get it. But what if we want to bring this home to people that don't quite get that? So a thought occurred to me literally just today as I'm going to talk about analogy, another analogy. This is so real. I have a family of six. When we go out, there's a lot of us, and sometimes there's 10 of us in our party, and we're going to an event somewhere like the X downtown, or we're on a trip to Disney like we did earlier in the year. And if anybody saw one of my posts recently, we were all wearing yellow shirts. Why? Because we've done this before. We know that people can get lost, and I'm like, where is my son? Look for the yellow shirt. So I use that as an analogy to say that's what a supergroup is. It's really like, what's your qualifier? In our software, maybe you're qualified by the location you're in. Are you in Toronto? Okay, which department are you in? You're in sales. So that qualifies me just like those yellow shirts, right? So hopefully when you see this as a, you're going to see one and you're going to see another. When you start doing this, you're going to really get into how do I find another way in real life to bring it into my software presentations. Did you want to add anything there, Paul?
Well, it's almost like when I think about analogies, it's the bridge between two concepts or two ideas. And when we can relate to something that's already known to something that's not as yet known, it just makes that transition, like crossing that bridge essentially, so much easier for folks. But here's what I love about it. Maybe you're going to cover this. It is so much more easy to remember analogies. Yeah, there you go. You see, it just
Right.
popped on the screen. And so that's the only thing I was at least thinking of as you were covering some of these ideas on analogies. It's making it
Absolutely.
relatable, rememberable, et cetera, et cetera. But please go ahead.
Absolutely. So that's the whole point. I mean, we probably said already in the chat, like what an analogies are and why. But the point is, we realize that we can leave people confused because we're talking about technical things most of the time as solution consultants. And if it's complicated, then there'll be no decisions. So, of course, the flip side of that is why using analogies is important because it creates clarity. And if you can keep it concise, it's like a picture's worth a thousand words. That's why that phrase came up. There's another example of a metaphor. Picture's worth a thousand words. Why? Because you just see it. You don't have to explain it. And that's going to help you close more deals. So I hope that resonates with you as we think about what we're going to go next is we're going to give you a pattern, right? There's a process to creating this. And just like I said, like a pattern like this is a sleeve. I've seen this so many times in my dad's workshop. Following a pattern matters and it helps you make it repeatable. So if you can relate to this, this is the thing that I think is going to help build your metaphors and analogies. So starting from the bottom and working our way up. Think of a situation, right? A situation is usually something you can't accomplish, right? It doesn't mean it's bad necessarily, but maybe you got a goal and there's something in the way of your goal, right? Maybe if you're in sales, your goal is to meet your quota, right? So if you're not meeting your quota, there's something that's a situation for you. Now, if I'm going to explain to somebody about the situation or help them with it, what's my inspiration? So going back to my trip. Literally, I had this aha moment when I saw a different device or different sewing kit than I was expecting to get. So me telling you that story, it really happened. I'm like, this is different. So it triggered in my brain. I go, if I got something different, maybe this is how I can explain to my customers about how something could be different. And that means I could use this over and over again in different situations, and which is what I've been doing. And then the end of the day, go ahead, Paul. Were you going to
You
add
know,
something?
as I'm thinking here, if I'm following you, the inspiration in that message was the fact that you had a better type of needle and thread, a pre-threaded
Correct.
needle. It inspired you. That's what. But what's interesting is because that means you're always going to be looking for pre-threaded. And so while your expectation was that you would get a needle and thread separate, and that's what you thought you needed, you were actually inspired to believe that the better approach, the better solution, aka your software features,
Correct.
can inspire, train, modify, and transition the vision of a client. If I'm following you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Ah,
sometimes I think about the conclusion sounds like the end of a story, but the point is, what is a conclusion? Well, in my case here, I said better by design. It meant like that's the message. What was the message you want to convey to somebody? Did you want them to believe that your software is better by design? Well, don't just tell them that. Give them an analogy to think about that and then set the scene. And this is where the filmmaking comes in. try to make it more than just transactional. Like today, I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to, that's kind of transactional. Instead, you can say, I'm going on vacation. I need to check my bank balance, or I'm going to buy a new house and I need a employment letter to help me get that home. Right. So put the scene in place. So you put some emotion into it, meaning like my concern or my need or something that you can't get done, but also set the stage in the sense of, like in my case, it was the airport, it was the hotel, it was, a situation that had more than like one character involved. So everything comes together. Hope these dots all connected for you. I want to actually kind of test you guys out to see if you were really listening in, and we're going to do this whole try it out factor right now. So we're going to try it on, and I'm using the term here, better by design. That's part of what my story was all about. But I'm going to use the chat here. So let's hopefully this works out for me. The first question, I'm just going to copy and paste. And Paul, tell me if this works out because,
You
wow.
bet.
Let's see. My chat's over here. I'm going to paste it right in the chat so everybody can see that first question.
I see it.
Yeah. So in my story, I'm basically going to ask the same question. I'm just going to change what's in quotes. And so in my story at the beginning, I said about the sewing kit. Which one of these is the correct answer? One, two, three, or four? Is it inspiration, conclusion, scene, or situation?
So type that in your chat dialog box.
So
Which one do you think it is?
yeah,
I've got an idea. I just
yeah,
don't want to be wrong.
right. Right. Now people don't want to be wrong, but it's all good. This is all part of learning, right?
Peter Cohan says it's number one, the inspiration.
That's right. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And so the inspiration, if you think about it, I think we just talked about that, is that I saw the pre-threaded needle and that's where the aha moment. Isn't that fun? It's literally like a light bulb going above your head. You're like, wow, that's different. And so don't lose those moments. If something like that happens in your real life, maybe take a note. Maybe you'll figure out how to work it in your presentation later. But I think
Yeah.
inspiration is fun. Yeah, go ahead,
And
Paul.
I just had a thought. I don't want to get too much into like the great demo concepts because I love where you're going with this. But when we're thinking about inspiration in great demo, we also consider it like the transition vision is what we call it. And I think sometimes that inspiration isn't necessarily what you think, but it's what another customer already had. And so just sharing
Right.
the concept and the idea or part of the story is that I was working perhaps with another customer and they were really struggling to, keep their gear together. They thought they needed this one thing. And but as a matter of fact, they found that they needed something else. And you know what was so cool about it? It just gave them some value. It gave them hope. It meant that their fingers weren't bleeding every time they tried to thread the needle. And that was three pre-threaded needle. And just so
Absolutely.
using your theme, your context here, and walking through, you can really transition the vision of a client that thinks they know what they want with something really cool and new and associating it with an analogy. I love where you're going with
100%.
this.
100%, Paul. Thanks for adding that. And that's the truth of it. And I think that's part of the fun of our job. Like we're showing up and we're talking everyday life with people. Sure, we're talking our software, we're giving them a solution, but I always felt better when I was of help to somebody. And so that's the way I get inspired too. Not just cute stories and trying to entertain people, but I think it's making a difference when you see a light bulb go off in their eyes, right? When they go, yeah, I get what you're talking about. So there's the next question. Um, Really, the only thing different here is the torn backpack during the trip. So which one of the one, two, three, or four? If you want to just go ahead, use the chat, just like Peter did last time. Maybe we should have put something on the line here, Paul, to say, hey, whoever gets the most answers get a prize or something.
Well, I could sing him some songs like I was to you before we started.
I don't know about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
My ears are still hurting from that last song.
I was using an analogy and ended up he didn't know the song. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh, that's
that's
not
real.
okay, that's weird. But anyway, so my story I shared at the start of the meeting, the text says, "What did my torn backpack during the trip represent in the four steps of this analogy and storytelling? Was that inspiration? Was that conclusion? Was that the situation or the scene? Anyone?
Yeah, I think we got some responses there.
Looking at a number three or
Yeah.
possibly a number four. Looks like the majority is going to number three, your situation.
And that's correct. Situation is correct. And it makes sense, right? Your customer is going to have a situation. You know what your product's good at. But if you don't know what the situation is, like that's why hopefully you got some discovery. And if you don't have a discovery, then you go in before you present and you uncover some things. I've had some people say at the beginning of a presentation, if you had a magic wand, what would you like in your new software? That was a quick way of trying to get people to say, what could matter to you, right? So what was important, I think, is really just understanding what the situation is, because how are you solving for something if you don't know what the problem is? All right.
That's right.
Okay. Cool. Did you want to add anything else there, Paul? I'm gonna just
No,
copy
I
and
think we
paste the next one.
keep moving.
Okay. Let's keep it moving. So here's the third question. As you can appreciate, there was four parts to the pattern. And so probably by process of elimination, you might figure it out. But what does better by design? So that was just a phrase that I used to describe, you know, what my sewing kit provided, my new sewing kit. So same thing. One, two, three, four, or A, B, C, D. You're all still willing to play along?
Yep,
Peter
I'm
says
seeing the
two.
first response is conclusion.
Conclusion. Yeah.
What else do we got? Another conclusion.
Another conclusion.
Conclusion.
So let's not
We're
all jump to conclusions here, guys. No, that was too easy. Sorry, too easy. I know, grown, grown, grown. But yeah, we're right. I'm glad we all jumped to conclusion because that's the truth. I mean, honestly, I like when I think about the end in mind. Sometimes I might actually have that conclusion in mind. I might not have it all worked out, like the term better by design. Maybe that's just the marketing side of me. Try to keep it three words, keep it simple. The concept, well, though, that came to me was this is better. And so when I think of something that's better, maybe you're not going to always use this phrase, but what makes things better? And if that's what makes things better for you, maybe it makes things better for somebody else. And that's the joy in what you're sharing, not just the software and its feature. It's the what does it do for my life? Does it make it easier? Does it make it better in some way? So that's why conclusion is part of the pattern. All right. And then, of course, the last question, I think you're just going to figure this out probably by process of elimination. It's pretty obvious, but let's just finish it off. The last one, the airport, the hotel, and of course, the concerns. This is just to solidify the whole pattern process, right? Maybe I don't have to wait for people to respond. They should figure out what's left, right? Just like process of elimination. It's the scene, right? The fact is the scene. Yeah, do we have people saying that? Yeah. So the scene, I think, is key to making the story come together. It makes it come to life. Otherwise, it's just another, I guess, could sometimes be trite. Let's be true. Let's be real about things. If everybody talks about how great a smartphone is, like, that's not special. We've always had, smartphones for a long time now. But back in the early 2000s and it was new and novel, yeah, that was probably a cool example. Now, if you still want to use your smartphone example, sure, but maybe use something new and different. Like maybe you got a new app that makes your life different. Maybe you got, maybe something happened with your smartphone. I think it's good if it's something unexpected. Maybe, you dropped it and it didn't break. And so you're grateful for the resiliency of your smartphone. So it's not about the device, is what I'm getting at. It's about real life and real life merged into our software discussions because reality is it's a demonstration, but it feels more like a discussion when you can kind of relate to your audience with your real life and their real life. That's really the whole point of all this. Any thoughts there, Paul?
I think looking at your image here, it just makes the suit fit perfect.
Fabulous. I like that one. That one suits me for sure. All right. So one more comment in the chat, just while we're already in the chat mode, is who's the hero in your presentation? Think about your presentations and tell me, who's your audience, and who, when I say hero, I'm using the term hero as in hero's journey, because that's usually what happens in a story. There's a hero in the story. So who would be the people you're talking to is what I'm getting at. Who are the people that, are your audience? So I see it says prospect, but then I guess I'm trying to get a sense of, who on the phone, what is the personas you're talking to? Are we talking the head of HR? Are we talking the head of IT? I'm just trying to get a sense of, what people, who are people talking with? Yeah, head of
Yep.
sales, I see. Yeah, head of
Hmm.
pre-sales. Okay. The whole point is I got a little confused when I was talking with Paul at first about this whole analogy. I was all about the product being the hero. Admittedly, Rippling's got a hero product. It's got a great product, right? Any product you have is the hero at the time, right? So whatever you're representing in your customers, you think that your product is the best, so you want to talk about it. The truth is, you really should be talking about them and how they use your product. So don't get it twisted and make your analogy all about how your product is the center of everything. They are the center, they are the hero. And by using your product, then they become the hero. So if you're telling your story, in my story, it was about me, but when you help tell them their story, make it about them. I figure you might want to add something to that, Paul.
Yeah, no, I love that. We often think in sales and pre-sales that our company and our solution is the savior to the day. It's not. It's actually the enabler to make your customer the hero. And that's why when we're actually talking training, we stay in you mode and we make sure the story is always about the customer, that is very relevant, and that by using the things like the inspiration that you have here and other components of it, you're using that to inspire your customer to change and change for the better. But ultimately, they're the ones who are the heroes in their organizations for using you and your solutions, which enable them to do a better job to save more money or save time. So
Absolutely.
that's what I think about
Absolutely.
when I'm thinking about the way and the analogies that you're using here from trying this on.
Awesome. Awesome. And if anybody that are comic book nerds, I know you probably can't help but think of your favorite superhero, right? Just picture that person and that's what you're making them be, right? That superhero. Now, I can't help but, end on something that I think is fun. Maybe this is showing my age. This is a popular show from the 80s. And, if you look at these two shirts, you can see a difference in them. The one on
Yeah.
the left versus the one on the right. So one of the questions that I thought I'd have here, this is not necessary for the trivia, but just in case that somebody knows, you probably know the name of the person if you know the TV show. That's Theo. And this is a shirt, but I'd be curious to see if somebody could type in the name of the shirt. There's a brand for this shirt. So this is just for those nerds that are maybe the same age as me and maybe they get, the name of the shirt. If they don't, it's okay. I'm just
So this
curious.
came from Cosby shows, right?
It came from the Cosby Show. That's right.
Okay.
Cosby Show. And if anybody that was a fan back in the day, maybe they know the name of the shirt. If they don't, if that's fine, maybe they even know who made the shirt. So maybe you don't know the name of the shirt, but the fact is, so if you comment, that's great. The shirt on the left is what he wanted to buy, and I think it was like $100. It was this dad was like, no, this is too expensive, and his sister is like, I'll make it, right? She knows how to sew. She just started sewing, and she made the shirt that you see on the right. It's obviously not a good outcome. So the same could be true for yourselves when you're starting this analogy. Uh, maybe you're not going to be good at it at first. That's okay. Maybe you're going to have to learn what makes it work. And I think that that's part of the process, right? So a poor fit, of course, it's too long. So don't make your analogy too long, right? Make it less than 2 minutes. Practice it. I think that's the key. You'll know how long it is because you recorded yourself, and you'll see, hey, it took me 2 minutes or less. I'm good. You can also try it out with somebody else. Like tell somebody your concept, tell them the thing that you're trying to set an analogy for. And if they don't get it, then keep trying, right? Go back again and figure out if you got this, worked out. Because otherwise it's messy, right? And it'll only get better, like the shirt on the left, if you know what you're doing. It'll become more simple, it's more easy, more clear, right? So these are the kinds of things that are really key when it comes to making good, good outfits, but also making good analogies. And I know I brought my dad up a number of times. I know that growing up that I saw clothes all around all the time. So when I say this is my story, this is truly my story. I wanted you to appreciate the fact that by making good analogies, you're going to connect better with your audiences, and that your audience is going to appreciate the fact that you made things more simple for them to understand. So it's not just about entertaining them, it's really about making sure that they're fully engaged. Did you want to add anything here, Paul?
No, I love it. I think that makes so much sense. I would add what Peter Cohan just put in the chat. Never tell a good story only once. Never use a great analogy only once.
That's right.
So interesting. Very good.
Yeah, because you get better at it. The more you use it, you'll probably add to the story. You know what? Your story might even change over time. It started one way and then it evolves, right? It becomes something completely different.
Sure.
So I wanted to wrap up here and thank, first of all, Paul, thank you so much for allowing me to be part of Great Demo. I learned so much from you. I'm a champion of Great Demo, as you can appreciate. I'm going to champion that at my company. We already subscribe to Great Demo. I thought the timing was just so perfect. I got started in this new role here at Rippling, and I wanted others to see what I espouse about solution consulting. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. If you got some questions, you can download the analogy pattern. It's pretty rudimentary. I just kind of got it started, but it's really like a worksheet. It's really a think of it as a spreadsheet that you can fill out. Please copy it because it's in Google. Don't modify mine. Just make a copy and make it your own. Hopefully, what this is going to do is it's going to inspire you to do more of these because you know how to do it and you're going to keep using it in the future. So, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you take
Well, hey,
away
before you
what you
go,
came
I
in
got
for.
something to give everybody, Kirk. Don't dismiss
Sure.
them. They're already leaving, man.
Yeah.
Get that
Yeah,
next.
absolutely.
Actually, I have a gift for everybody. Assuming you got it. Yeah, here it is. So what if I told you we had a template that allow you to tell the perfect story and use metaphors and analogies in those sessions? If you would like to click this link or this QR code right here, I probably should have put the link there as well. You can actually download the Great Demo Methodology Guide, the template, if you will, and the situation slide, which is the perfect way to tell a story and consume analogies. And as Peter said, it's the way to capture them. So you don't tell the same story or just once. You're empowering your entire team to tell them the right way and use them over and over, stories that are relevant to what they actually need. So I wanted to provide this download link for you so that you can get this free guide from me and Peter and Art and other folks from Great Demo, just to better capture and tell your stories. So with that, if you got the QR code, just wanted to say thank you so much. Use analogies and metaphors and stories, much like Kirk did in his sewing and his tailoring analogies. Use stories that are relevant to the customer, inspire them with action and thoughts and differentiators from your solution. We call it transition vision. Of course, we see it as inspiration here. But as you all know, stories are highly memorable. So with that, I'll leave it to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Kirk, Coach Kirk, thank you so much for sharing some of your insights, your stories. All of us are going to remember the sewing kit, the patterns, and so many other things. So I just wanted to say thank you as well. And thanks, folks, for joining and bearing with us through the initial tech challenges. If you want a copy of this, or if you'd like to download that template that we have for you, hit the link or hit us up on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to share any of this with you directly. Thanks so much. Hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.